Fala galera, Beto Nitrini aqui para mais um episódio do Trilados, eu e o Fabio Carvalho aqui. Hoje a gente vai ter um episódio diferente em inglês, então vou fazer a introdução em inglês aqui, e aí depois a gente já começa, todo mundo vai ter que estudar um pouquinho para entender, mas vale muito a pena. Beleza, Fabinho, vamos lá?
Fala, Betão, esse cara tem muita história no triatlo, eu tava muito animado para gravar com o Greg. Hey Greg, how are you?
Doing fabulous, you guys. We're on our way. We had a few technical difficulties, but we're going. And I was saying to Beto, it's like
We finally did it.
This is usual for me, mate. I can't tell you how many times the 25 episodes I've done. I think probably half of them. It's just stuff that happens. But we're here. We're going. I love it. It's great to see you guys.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And congratulations for your podcast.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, it's been It's been a hell of a journey. It's been really wonderful. I remember the first time I hit record, I was like, this is kind of scary, right? I don't know how you guys felt with yours, but you kind of, okay, here we go. We're live. We're going. And it took you a little while to get going. And then once you're in it, you just start to realize that having conversations with awesome people is such a treat. And
let me just interrupt you for a moment, because I know that me and Fabio are old school triathletes, and we got to know Greg Bennett for his career for a long time. When we started in '97, Greg Bennett was flying. So I'll try to do a little introduction of our guest first, for everybody get to know him better. So our guest today is arguably one of the greatest Olympic non-draft triathletes of all time. He has 28 years of a professional career as a triathlete, with more than 500 races and more than 100 wins. He won 2 times the I2 World Series, 1 time the I2 World Championship. His 6 World Cup titles, winner of the Lifetime Fittest in 2006, 2007, 2008, with 11 wins in 15 starts. Ranked the number 1 triathlete in 2002, 2003, 2 Olympic Games, Athens 2004 with 4th place, and Beijing 2008. He was voted the Triathlete of the Year in Triathlete magazine in 2003 and 2007, and he retires from the sport in 2014 and starts his coaching and mentoring at the business in the Bennett Endurance. And in 2020, he started the Greg Bennett Show, who was voted the greatest podcast of triathlons in Triathlete magazine the last year. Also dive into entrepreneurship, creating some business, and he was talking about some during the show, while he raises his 2 kids, and with his wife. He's also a former triathlete, Laura Bennett, who is in Florida, and play tennis and go to the gym and do some workouts to the gym to keep his shape. So without further ado, welcome to Trilados, Greg Bennett. And now, how are you, mate?
Wow, mate, that was extraordinary. What a
nice introduction.
Good going down memory lane,
nice
mate.
Research.
I appreciate that. It feels like a different person. It feels like a long time ago. We were talking pre-show.
I've done all this.
Yeah, we were talking pre-show, right, about what we achieved or what we did physically. And now I'm a 52-year-old man, and you look back and go, wow, like I did that. Who was that person? And it's fun. But thank you again for that intro. Really,
I just
read your
resume.
To me.
There's nothing that I invented. It's just your resume. I just go to your Wikipedia and search in the internet and found everything so.
But honestly, the last part of that resume is the best. Is that now being a dad of 2 kids.
That's who you are now.
I would trade in the rest of it just to be a dad of 2 kids. That's where I really found I've had the most impact. To be honest, it's been very cool to. Even though I'm an old dad, I'm the old dad in the playground with a 4 and a 6-year-old. It's been really cool. That journey in itself has been incredible. But I've always loved being a part of the triathlon world and everything about it. So very cool, guys. Glad to be here, and thanks for having me on.
No, thank you very much for your time.
2004, you were 4th in the Olympics, and in my opinion, you missed the medal because of that breakaway. You were not in the right place in the right time, because physically you were totally capable of being that breakaway. And were you okay after the games, or you were a little bit of down, like I could go one place better or something like this?
I think yes and no, to unpack that, there's a bit that goes on. One is early on, I didn't.
And how was also another question? How was the pressure before the Olympics? Because you were ranked #1 in the world.
Yeah, well, I think I had qualified for the Australian team early in 2024, and then got injured for several months and wasn't able to train properly. And with about 9 weeks before the Olympics, I started getting my body going, started training, and I trained every day with Laura. And Laura, she'd go up the road and I'd chase her down, and we trained every day together relentlessly for Athens and the Olympics. And that process and the preparation is what I actually remember most about that whole Olympic experience. It brought Laura and I closer together as a couple. She was somebody that gave tremendously to me and helped me in my performance. And that was super special. And then come Athens Olympics, the race itself, unlike most races where the higher you ranked, the better transition spot you get, Athens is just done out of a hat. And for the Australians, we got a really poor spot where we actually had to run out of the water, go right, grab our bikes, and then go left. Whereas everybody else kind of got to go left, straight down out of transition. Now, I'm only talking, I don't know, maybe it cost us 5 or 6 seconds, maybe, not even that I'm probably reaching. But it was enough that on the first lap of the bike, 5 laps bike course, and it was quite a brutal hill climb and everything, that I spent that entire first lap chasing. And I finally got on along the bottom, and we were making our way back up to the climb again. And that's when Hamish Carter, Bevan Doherty, Olivia Marceau, and several others went. And it was one of those.
Was also in that breakaway in the first time. And then
who was? Robbo.
Peter Robertson.
He might have been there early, but he wasn't in that little breakaway.
Yeah, he was early and then he got dropped.
Oh, is that what happened? And then I remember getting along the top there and going, they were just there. Like I was 50 meters behind, not even 30 meters. And I'd just been sprinting on my own. And I turned around and yelled for help. And it was Tim Don was on my wheel. And Tim just goes, I can't. And I was like, no. and look, that gap opened up. They were a well-oiled machine up front. Like honestly, Hamish and Bevan knew what they were doing. Olivia, all of them were prepared to put it on the line. I've kind of found like I was left with the group that kind of didn't want to work, played that game. And so I spent most of that 40K chasing on my own. And then look, get off on the run and had the fastest run, although actually I say that Hunter Kemper actually was faster by 1 second, but had a really great run and ran up into fourth. I caught a lot of that front group. I think there was like maybe 7 or 8 of them, 9 of them. And I caught a lot of them, but I couldn't get the final 3. But it was one of those where I stepped away going, there's certain races you feel like you could have done better and all sorts of things. But the bits where I felt like I could have done better weren't under my control. Like the transition cost me the race. Like having that, I know that I had to use up a lot of energy on that first lap of the bike than if I'd been, because Hamish and I came out of the water together, side by side. There's a picture of us running up the ramp together out of the swim. But Hamish has 7 seconds in front going up the hill for the first time, which is a fair gap. And so I know for a fact that transition was the thing that took me out. And so then you go, well, I couldn't have controlled that. And I had a great race and I had a great preparation. And Laura and I were getting married soon after. And so it was one of those, look, had I podiumed, maybe it would have changed the way that we enjoyed the rest of the year. As it was, I didn't. We got to have a really amazing wedding, go on an incredible honeymoon. And so, and then fast forward, Laura gets 4th in Beijing.
4th in Beijing also.
And so now we're a happy house. We both have the same results. Not one of us is sitting here with a medal going, look what I got, you don't have one. It's kind of like, and in fact, she's a little better because she was 4th by 6 seconds and I was 4th by 8 seconds. So she actually is a little better, but we laugh about that. It's kind of a nice thing to have. The Olympic experience and just making the Olympics is such a thrill. Especially we came from, at the time, Australia was the most dominant male country and probably female. So to even make the team, I was pretty thrilled.
And also the qualifying system you had, it was so dramatic. Yeah. Look,
every federation's trying to get it right, and every one of them screwing it up to some degree, and you just shake your head. I was bitterly disappointed after 2000 Olympics, to be honest, not 2004. 2000, I was you
It's
know,
a home
ranked number
Olympics. Huh?
home Olympics. I'd won on the race the year before. I was ranked number 2 in the world. I'd podiumed on the race the 3 years before the win. So I'd had a really it was a course that I loved, and I thought I'd made that team, and then I got left off after there was a court appeal by one of the other athletes, Miles Stewart, and he was put on the team because they looked at the way the contract was written. They would look at that athlete's entire history and compare it to the athlete that they were up against qualifying races. So I had 2 races, and Miles had won the 91 World Championships. And so he had a world title and I didn't. So he got put on the team. And so that to me almost took me out of the sport. You know, that I was so bitter. It was really, you know, Simon Whitfield saying, "Hey, Greg, come to Canada and help me get ready for the 2000 games," that reshaped the way I approached my mindset to the sport, and going and helping, you know, a good mate of mine, and he ends up winning the gold medal, and ends up putting it around my neck. You know, this is before 9/11, so security was a bit lighter, and I remember him running off the dais, off the podium, and putting it around my neck and saying, "Greg, this is yours." And I'll add one final bit before, because I know I'm rabbiting on, but it was also then, you know, in that training with Simon in Canada that I met Laura. And so you kind of go, well, my best mate won the Olympic gold and I got the goal. It worked out pretty well after Sydney. And then 2004, look, it worked out. It was a great experience. You know, so still happy with the whole journey.
And then from 2004, it switched a little bit to the non-drafting races, where you dominated from 2005 to 2011, the circuit of non-drafting races. We did some races together, and you just dominated everything. And I know from people that told me that you had a different approach of training, where you would run a lot, don't spend much time in the bike. And so tell us a little bit of how was that approach of training you did?
Yeah. It was, look, non-drafting Olympic distance was and still is my favorite format in the world for triathlon.
I think we're missing this time. We're missing that type of racing, because it's we in the ITU we missed the time trial. Yeah. You know, and in the long distance it's just too long. It's too long. And sometimes it gets boring. Even the T100.
Yeah. I actually think it also shows who's the I don't want to say this because I sound like I'm tooting my own horn, but it's kind of like it shows you who's the best athlete, because in an Olympic distance non-drafting, you can't get away with having a weakness anywhere. If you're weak in the swim, you're not making it up on the bike or the run. Like, you need to be weapons across the board if you want to win these races. I feel like in the ITU, you can hide a little bit if you don't quite have the strength on the bike. You know, just ask Hayden Wild about his thoughts about Alex Yee on that. You know, it's kind of, and then in the ultra long, you know, the longer races, you look at the guys that can't swim and they're losing 2 minutes over, you know, a 2K swim, which is unbelievable that anybody could lose that much, but they can still get on the podium at the end because the bike and run is so long. So I still, yes, Olympic distance non-drafting was my key. You ask about my training. So in 2005, when Laura and I really said, okay, we want to do this sport with even more intent than we've been doing. You know, we'd had some success. You know, I'd managed to win the World Series a few times and be world number one. But you know, when you're just in your gut, and you feel like
in that time, they started to throw a lot of money into those.
Oh,
races.
well, that was it, mate. That made the transition a lot easier. I'm not going to lie, as a professional athlete.
He started with the high V triathlon, and
Lifetime and high V. Yeah, there was tons available, and I just started looking at it. I did a lot of homework with a guy, the famous coach Arthur Lydiard out in New Zealand, and his style of coaching, very old school. Most physiologists would probably look at what he was doing as you know, dinosaur era, but it really worked for me. And so a typical training week started on a Tuesday to some degree. You know, Monday was a bit more of a recovery day. And actually now I look back, I was laughing at Laura. Our recovery day used to be an 8K run, a ride up to Jamestown, which was 46K, including an 8-mile climb or 13-kilometer climb, and then go swim for 4 or 5K. That was the recovery day. I'm like, oh my gosh. But then really our training day would start on a Tuesday, and that would always be a long run done well. And so long run for me was 20 miles or 32K, and always trying to hold under 6-minute mile or 3:45K pace, ideally faster, but not pushing. It has to be done easy. We call it best easy pace. And so that was Tuesday, then finish, go and have a 2 or 3K easy swim on a Tuesday. Wednesday was always more of a bike focus with time trial type work, but shorter, punchy stuff, or big gear work on the wind trainer, a big swim, and then always another run, run sort of anywhere from 10K to 15K. Thursday was always a run again, but more that real VO2 type work. Favorite workout still to this day would be 20 by 1 minute with 1 minute recovery. Always doing kind of fartlek work, so always moving. And used to be a good monitor of my fitness, because if I could go through the 10K in around 32 minutes, going 1 minute on, 1 minute off, I knew that I was in pretty good nick. And then, then it'd be another easy bike and things on a Thursday. Friday, again, a big swim bike day. Then Saturday, another big run, which would be longer threshold work. So everything between 3 and 7 minute type efforts with a 2-to-1 ratio. So, if you're running 7 minutes efforts, you get a 3.5 minute recovery. Again, always moving. So I never would stop. I was constantly doing fartlek. And then Sundays would just be more of a bike focused day again. So it was kind of like a pretty heavy run focus. Most people would say that was too much running. But it was something that I really swore by. I wanted to know that if I could run 32 kilometers at 340K pace, that I could get off the bike and sprint to 10K without worrying about blowing up. And it did. My running went down uncomfortably under the 30
you were
minutes.
Running as fast as you were running the ITU, but after time trial.
Yeah, and to the point, like, I remember 2007, the year that when I won the 5 races, and every single run no matter the course, was within 10 seconds of each other for all 5. And it was all sort of between 30, 40 and 30, 50 or whatever. And off the bike after a non-drive.
I remember in LA, in that final race.
Second to final. That was number 4 of 5. Dallas was 5. Yeah.
But Walton didn't want you to win.
He really didn't.
He pushed the swim and bike, and then I remember you caught him like right in the end.
Last quarter mile.
And it was a big downhill before the finish.
Yeah.
And he was leading, and you were coming like flying down the downhill.
Yeah.
Your legs you was moving so fast.
Just letting go.
He's about to fall.
That's a good memory, mate. It's I remember.
And you had the top down.
Yeah. I never liked to wear the top, and while the rules said you could run without a top on, I still don't like to work out with any top on. I wish our gym didn't require a shirt. I wouldn't wear. And it's not vanity. I just don't like having something on. And but I remember that race. Man, I'd already won the first 3, and now people start to talk. Oh, is Greg going to win the big prize purse at the end? And you start to put pressure on yourself. And I remember getting off the bike, and Craig Walton, who's one of the greatest swim bikers ever to do the sport, one of the greatest triathletes, just an uber guy, and he'd smashed me. He'd opened up a swim bike and was 3.5 minutes in front, which is a long way. And I remember running our transition. For a split second, I had the thought, oh, good, the pressure's off. Don't worry about it, right? I can still win the series, but I don't have to win the 5 from 5. And then I remember just going, hell no, sprint and see what happens. And I sprinted that 10K and running up to the Disney Center, like you said, up the hill, down the hill, 2 laps. And just even the race director said, yeah, Greg, I've never seen anybody go down a hill as fast as you did. And downhill running was always kind of my forte anyway. Mm-hmm. And I remember getting to within about 800 meters to go. And Craig Walton was now well locked in my sights, and came up, and I went to run around him with about 500 meters to go. And he sprinted, and he started sprinting. I'm like, come on, I've just taken 3.5 minutes. Give it to me now. And he made me earn it all the way. And look, we were good mates. And so there was always this thing, did Greg pay him off and all of this stuff? And anybody that knows Waldo knows that he's not He's not a man that would be bought, if you know what I mean. He was gonna make me earn it. And I think it was races like that during that sort of span that you talked about, and the rivalries, whether it be with Andy Potts or Matt Reed or Hunter Kemper, Craig Walton.
I remember that race you had with Macca in Alcatraz.
Oh,
climbing
that's
up
one we can
stairs.
do. That's one we can forget about when I passed out. Is that the one you're talking about? When I had a 3-minute lead. I had a 3-minute lead on the run in Alcatraz, and I blew myself up so bad I passed out. And Chris Leoto walked. Chris was brand new to the sport, and he walked me all the way to the finish. And I had 2 IVs, and I remember them going, "You're the first person we've ever given an IV to in Alcatraz." Because always.
But that was like 200 meters to the finish line.
Oh, mate, it's just things happen. You know, remember when Alistair Brownlee had that in London?
Yes.
I think when you get yourself so fit, you're able to just keep pushing and to the point the body just goes, no more.
Girls can do that a lot.
Yeah.
Johnny Brownlee is almost collapsing.
Oh, that's right. Johnny in Cancun. Was it Cancun or wherever the grand final was? Yeah.
And Alistair just, he was almost collapsing, and Alistair brought him to the finish line.
Yeah.
So, Greg, and let me ask you something. We are talking about these non-draft races that we don't have anymore. So here in Brazil, we still got the international triathlon of Santos. That's the one that Fabio was talking in the pre-show. When he was talking, we had Maca and Mark Allen and Ken Gla and Nina Kraft right here a few years ago. But today, a few years ago, we have we had the first 100 races organized by the PTO, because it's taking the place of these non-draft Olympic races, and now they are getting, trying to get this whole year, the full year narrative, like we have like the high V and the lifetime fitness. It's a full calendar with these races. And how do you see yourself in a race like this, and how do you like the format? And
oh, mate, there's a bit to unpack in this one too. So look, first and foremost, I love what the PTO are trying to do. I love that they're trying to take our sport to another level. They've made big promises. And right now, to be honest, I feel like we're getting a little bit under-delivered in terms of what we're getting back. That doesn't mean that it's over, so long as they pivot. And I think if they, like any company, if the product doesn't quite fit, you pivot, you make some adjustments, and you can keep moving forward. When I watched Miami the other week, I didn't go down. I actually just watched from home. It was 7 hours on a Saturday afternoon. That it's too long. It's too long. If you look at and the example I had actually was I watched that on the Saturday, and then the Sunday afternoon, I was watching Scotty Scheffler come from 5 shots behind in a golf tournament, right? And I've just got into golf, but it had me in, because there was so much going on. There was shifting around. You knew where the players were, the scoreboard, the leaderboard. I was watching Scotty come from over here, this guy, and it had me in for about the last 2 hours. I was like, wow, I'm not leaving. This is so awesome. And I just think if you watch most of the tennis, except for the Grand Slams, which are 5 sets for the men, they're 3 sets. They're generally won within an hour and a half to 2 hours on a long day. Sometimes they go for the big 3 hours, but generally speaking, you're getting something in an attention span, which is like that 2-hour window. So first and foremost, I'd be saying to the PTO, figure out how to make it 2 hours, whatever you do. And again, we've already talked about how wonderful I think the non-drafting Olympic distance is, but it fits in that pocket. Yes. But then I start to think, well, what else needs to be happening here? Well, there's not many lead changes. There's not that much interest going. You're not really getting to see what's happening with the back markers. But is there really anything going on? Like Sam Long might be coming from somewhere, but it's not like riveting. It's not like whoa. And I start to think, when we in '97 we did a race in Australia, which was an Olympic distance, non-drafting, divided into 3 parts. So we did a 500 swim, 13.3K bike, 3.3K run, dive straight back in the water, keep going. And what happened was actually Craig Walton annihilated, I think I was second, Macca was third, but the gaps did open up. But we also had a lot of changes the whole time, because if you were weak in any area, it really showed up. And so I think I feel like the whole sport have leaned so far going, we must be long because Ironman Kona is such a success. But Ironman Kona is the only event that I truly go, it's my day. My boys will text each other. We're going to get into it. It's your day. It's the long event that you all get excited for. And I don't even mind the fact that if it's a world champs in Utah or in Nice, whatever, for a world title. But when it comes to watching a series of Ironman events or even half Ironman events, I've got a couple of kids. You guys have got kids and family. I've got work. I've got business. I've got my own training. I can't give you 7 hours of my time. I can't. I can do it once a year, but I can't give you a series of it through the year.
Yeah.
And so I would be saying, start at the finish. What are you trying to achieve? What's the destination? If you could stand at the top of the stairs, what does it look like and feel like to have triathlon go mainstream? That to me is you got a 2-hour attention span and you got to make it invigorating. You got to show, I think the commentators right now I don't mean to pick on anybody, but they're just saying, oh, his run form looks good. It's like, well, yeah, we can all see the run form. I want to know what's happening at the back or at the front and when are they going to meet if we're looking at their times. And like the commentators need to just be a little bit more educated on what would be helpful to somebody watching. And again, not meaning to point fingers and blame anybody because everybody's trying hard. Everybody's definitely trying hard. And I'm not knocking that. But in terms of me I would have loved to have raced that T100 distance because I always blew up when I did the 70.3s. I always blew up around that 75, 80K on the bike, and I always blew up about 10 miles in the run, 16K. So for me personally, it would have been a great distance, but I just don't know if it's the right format. And
I agree.
Who knows? I might be completely wrong because, like I said earlier, I love the Olympic distance. So
Yeah, me too.
And
So maybe that's where I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just too long.
The triathlon world is going long. For age groupers, don't do short course races anymore.
Yeah.
We don't have so much short course races.
I think it'll swing back. I think it's a pendulum. It's like we go that way and then we come back. I love watching Macca's Super League, whatever you want to call it. And, that's what we grew up racing in the 90s in Australia. And it's really entertaining. If people haven't watched that, if your listeners haven't watched that, check it out, get the calendar, put it in. And I'm telling you, it's a blast. These these men and women are absolutely phenomenal at the speed and the velocity they're moving. Their lead changes. It's quick. It's fun. Within an hour, you've watched 3 races and they've been neck and neck at breakneck speeds. And that to me is entertainment in the world of triathlon, and it's incredible athleticism. So, my thinking is if we're going to want to show this to the world, we need to go shorter, not longer. That doesn't mean that we don't love longer. Okay, the best, my brain's going a million miles. You got me going. The best is cricket. Do you guys play cricket in Brazil? Probably not.
No.
So cricket used to be, well, it still is, a 5-day test match, right? 2 teams, boom, couple of innings each, goes backwards and forwards. And you can end in a draw after 5 days, but that is traditional cricket. Then in the 80s, they come out with this 1-day cricket, where it's basically each team gets 50 overs or 300 balls each to throw at each other to get as many runs as they can from 50 overs. And that just takes cricket to another level, but it brings the test match with it, right? The test match isn't forgotten. It's actually now cricket's back on everybody's radars. Then they've gone and done a cricket now called 2020, which is now just 20 overs, right? So 120 balls of each team, and it's fast, and all the cricket players are mic'd up. Like you've got a guy batting, and the ball's going. These cricket balls are rock hard. Think of the hardest rock, and it's coming at you at 150k an hour, right? And they're mic'd up, going, "Oh shit, oh, this is going to be tough." And you're hearing it in the commentary. It's awesome, right? So now you've got these 3 tiers of cricket. You've got the 2020, the 1-day test, 1-dayers, and then the test match. They all work well together, and I think we can do that in this sport. We can embrace the Super League stuff. We can embrace the Olympics and the ITU, and we can embrace Ironman or whatever else. I just don't know if you're wanting to go beyond the people that already loved, like the three of us love triathlon. If I came down to Brazil and we said, hey, let's sit around for the afternoon and watch the T100, we'd all love it, right? Like,
Yeah.
Because we're already in it and we know the players. And
but we just need to bring some more people into the sport.
Yeah. I wanted to go beyond the obvious. And you know, if I always think, I look at things as if I'm an investor. And specifically, if I'm looking at the T100 series, would you go long on it or would you short it today?
Short.
Right now I'd go short. But that doesn't mean there's not enormous potential in there that maybe you'd even hedge your bets still and go, well, maybe I'll wait on shorting a little bit, because there's still a great team there with Sam Renouf at the helm. There's still great energy amongst them. They're all working hard. I just don't know that they've nailed what it's meant to be yet, you know?
Yeah. Well, we had a race here in Brazil in Rio de Janeiro that's traditional. That it has 2,000 meters of swimming, 60 kilometers of bike, and 15 kilometers run. For me, it's the best format because it's like you said. I always blow up like between the 17 kilometer of a 20 of a 70.3. So 15 kilometers is very nice, and it's longer race and it's not short. So. Yeah. It's a very nice distance, but I love all the. So as you said, I love all the distance. I did all the distance of triathlon. So for me,
same mate. And look, it's if they say, hey, we just want to appease the triathlon community that we have today, then I think it's a great series. I think it's awesome. But when they're saying they want to be the next tennis or try and go beyond what we've been, I don't think the product fits the marketplace yet. So that's what I would say.
But one of the things that is nice is that you have every race you have the best athletes racing. So
well, they could, but they don't. Yeah. That was the other thing when it came out. And they're like, we got 8 races, and I wrote Sam, and I said, Sam, your athletes aren't at all 8. And he said, well, he wrote back and said, not this year, Greg. You know, we tried to make it happen. And I said, well, the fact that you said not this year gives me hope. And again, I think things are going to progress and change. The problem we have is, what runway do we have in terms of the financial dollars that are coming in from the investors? Yeah, they got to get this right fast. And I wouldn't have taken the gamble to not let my athletes be at all 8 races. They're all getting paid well enough that they should be at all 8. So like Live Golf, they got to turn up and do all of those Live tournaments. You know, these guys, they're almost playing more with Live than they did the PGA. And I think they've missed it on that. Even if you'd reduce the series to 6 races, but make every one of your contracted athletes race every single race.
Still a lot of wild card left.
Yeah, a lot of wild cards.
It's changing the whole dynamics of the race. You're like, I don't think that was the way to do it.
Yeah.
But again,
Magnus broke his wrist, so last Tuesday, so he's out of Singapore.
Magnus did live.
Yes.
Oh,
he broke his wrist. He fell off his bike on Tuesday, and he's out of the race.
Oh no, it's broken for sure.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, I have to send him a note. That's terrible.
And Javier Gomez is also pulled away.
What's going on with Javi?
I don't know. I got so bummed after I read. I was hoping for a matchup with Alistair Brownlee and Javier Gomez again. So Javi's not finding his way back.
Yeah, I've got to send him a note. I've sent him a few notes, but I haven't heard back, and that's never a good thing.
Such a nice
right?
guy.
He's the best.
Interviews from him, he's always.
I just want to see Alistair racing at the top again.
Yeah, it hurts to see he's falling apart.
He's there. He's there. He's just not quite pacing it. It's like, dude, just don't drop the first mile in 4:30.
How easy he runs in the beginning, like. He's so fast.
But go even easier, mate. Like we're all screaming at it.
It never goes easy. Never.
No, I know, but he has to.
And I love the way he races, because it's like winning or nothing.
I know, but if he wants to win or nothing, then he just needs to treat that the first 5K. 5K. Go through in 16, 17 minutes. Dawdle for him. That'd be a dawdle. For the rest of us, we're sprinting. But dawdle that first 5K. When you get to 5K, you're allowed to play. But until then, you're not allowed to play. I put a monitor on it and just say, mate, keep your heart rate at 150, whatever it is. Cruise along.
But in Miami, we could see he's still not as fit as he used to be. Like we could see he's still a little bit overweight. Maybe drops it like 2 or 3 kilos, and then he'll be fine.
Ali's a hard one to read with that. You know, his body shape is just, you know, the way he's relaxed when he runs often makes it look like he's carrying more weight than he is. I think because he's just the flow that he has between steps, there's actually quite a large relaxation in the way that he operates. And so I actually don't think I actually think he's fit. I think he's always struggled in the heat and humidity. You know, let's be fairness. His kryptonite has always been a little bit in that. He won Rio Olympics. He's won a lot of big races. I'm not saying that he's not capable, but it does take the edge off him. Let's just say that. It takes the edge off him a little bit, I think. Yeah.
Now changing a little bit. Do you remember that race in Kitzbühel where they finished in the uphill? Yeah. They should do something different like this, you know, like a format like this. That was one of the greatest races I've ever seen. It was awesome, mate. Look, when World Triathlon said we're not going to be a one-day world championship, we're going to be a series, I got super excited thinking, well, in a series, we're going to have short distance races, draft legal. We're going to have non-drafting Olympic distance. We're going to have climbing races, like you said, the one in Kitzbühel. We're going to have some of the super series races. And at the end of the year, we're going to the final race might even be a half Ironman, whatever. I thought we were going to get the best athlete all around.
Exactly. And we didn't get it. We got flat courses in big cities, looping around, where if you can run a 29-minute or whatever, you're going to win. That's it.
The same winner of all races.
Why do we need a series of that when it's the same racing? I feel like I'm hammering the sport. I don't mean to be hammering the sport. I love the sport. I'm just saying, I always hoped that a series would come about where there would be that kind of, hey, this first race is going to be one of Macca's Super League try things where we're going to do 3 super sprint races. The next one's going to be an Olympic non-drafting distance. The next one's going to be a sprint distance drafting. The next one's going to be like you said, a time trial format or whatever, like even swim, bike, run. We did a lot of that in Australia, by the way. In the 90s, I remember doing a race in Alice Springs where we what did we do? We swam in this unbelievable spring, the deepest spring in the middle of Australia, freezing cold actually. We had to wear wetsuits. It's 1,500 meters. We all got our times. Then we biked individual time trials, and we all got our time. They combined our swim and bike times together, and then you started the run. And you started the run at the top of this big mountain in Alice Springs, and everybody left off their times, right? So I think Craig Walton was number 1, and off he went. I was number 2 and then Hamish Carter was right with me, and Macca and a couple of others. We were all really close to it. It was amazing. We were all within 8 seconds after doing individual swim and individual bike. And so we all had to do the run then, and none of us caught Waldo, but I finished second right behind Waldo, and then there was Hamish, and it was awesome because it's just a different way of doing it. Yes. Right? And you were forced to be able to be a swim, bike, and runner. And I think a series like that would be awesome. If we could just, the goal of the series, the number 1 goal is to find out who's the best triathlete in the world.
All round.
Yeah, all round.
Yeah, you're right. So, yeah. I remember in Switzerland, they used to have the Swiss circuit of racing, and it was like this. It was like one duathlon, and then like 2 sprint races, and then 1 Olympic distance non-drafting, and then
mix it up. What do you got, Peter?
Since you are reminiscing some rememberings for us, I would like to send you a friend of mine that you know very well send you a question, and I'm going to read it. So after that it's a little long, so I'm going to read it. So let's take a trip back to the time into the 1996 Cleveland World Championship, shall we? Yeah. That day, you and Hamish Carter picked up Simon Lessing and Greg Walton, and then you guys nailed it into the best bike riders ever seen in a standard triathlon. And can you believe that even today, I'm sure that the times of the total times of the top 5 are still legendary in the Olympic triathlon history. Now, check this out. While the Ironman boasts records from all sorts of places and weather conditions, why can't we say the same for Olympic triathlons? Even if the bike distance was spot on or not, even the support car influenced the pace or not, we made history in terms of those records that should never have existed in outdoor triathlon. Anyway, that day I hit the run like I did always. But I never expected Luke Van Lieder, who decided to run with me, to keep up with the crazy pace he set at the beginning of the race. I went strong, and until the end, I only saw you at the final stretch. Sorry for snatching that podium spot from you, but after suffering so much in the water, seriously, whose idea was it to slap different caps on the top of three from the ranking? And guess who was leading that ranking? Yeah, yours truly. Anyway, I know you're upset that day, nothing personal, but I didn't take long to get back for you to get back at me at the last stage at Nusa, where I needed to finish sixth and miles still couldn't win the race so that I could finish again in the first place in the world ranking as I did in 1991. You guys worked really well on the bike and took miles to the podium, and you came in second, and I was sixth.
Oh,
Anyway, it always tough. It was always tough competing against you, but at the same time, it was a huge pleasure to have competed with such a great triathlete like you. Leandro Macedo sent this question for me.
Leandro Macedo. Oh my gosh. When he breaks down the 96 world champs like that, and what a legend, by the way. When Brazil triathlon, you guys had some incredible athletes led by him. Like he really was the dominant man in the 90s. He was the guy that could take on, Brad Bevan from Australia and Hamish Carter. And these were the icons. These are the guys that I looked up to. And
Yes.
and I remember that 96 world champs when yeah, we managed to have a decent swim bike and get away. And like you said, Luke Van Leerd, the way he ran that day was insane. Like he ran past Simon Lessing like he was hopeless. And then I'm running down the finishing going, I'm going to podium. And then boom, there goes Leonardo straight past me. And he took the podium. And honestly, what great memories. I had no idea until he just mentioned that I impacted the world number one like I did. I didn't realize that. I'm sorry, mate. I really am. I do remember that race in Noosa with Miles. I was bummed not to beat him, to be honest. And honestly, I'd much rather him have the world number one than Miles. I get along with Miles fine, but I'm sorry, buddy.
No, because when I said to him that we are going to recording with you, and if he like to send you something, some
Yeah.
notes, and he sent this one,
Oh, that's really,
and
really sweet.
and I also got
I
another
was
one.
there. I was junior. I was watching that race.
You were the junior in 96
Yes.
in Cleveland? Mate, do you remember at the swim? They had us in the inner harbor there.
Yeah.
And the first boy
we were,
turn.
like, watching from the pier.
Oh, it was insane. Beto, you got to understand. It was the first boy swim, the first part of the swim. There was probably 100 of us in the field. It was mad. Deep water start. And I figured I'd always said that the race starts 10 minutes before. So I'm like, where's Craig Walton? And I'm just basically holding his singlet, following him around. And we go down the water. And I think it was perfect because he was ranked just before me. I think he was fifth and I was sixth in the world or whatever. And so I got to follow him down and I just stayed on Walter. I just stayed right next to him. And then the gun goes and Waldo gets to the first boy first and I'm second right on his hip with Lessing on his other side. We get around. The boy turn is, well, you see the back wall behind me, right? It's only, 3 meters? It was the boy turn and then a wall, a concrete wall that went across there in a harbor. So there was no room for everybody. And everyone poured through and just hammered over the top of each other. Meanwhile, the rest of us that got there first kind of went through and didn't know anything about it. And so we ended up opening up a bit of a gap and then put our foot down on the bike early on there with Hamish Carter, myself, Brad Bevan, I think was part of it, Simon Lessing and Craig Walton.
Yeah.
It was a nice little group to be a part of. And I was biking well then, like that was my bike had really turned up training with Brett Sutton. And so I was able to really push that bike incredibly hard at the front. But I thought we'd done enough to podium, but nope.
Yeah.
Never enough. There's always a runner
And you
coming.
had that bike with
The slingshot bike.
Yeah. It's one that doesn't have the down tube.
No down tube, just a
Yeah, no
wire
down-
with a
yeah.
spring and then and a fiberglass plate so you kind of bounce along the road. But I had some good bikes on that. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I had some
No,
reasonable success.
This first buoy is always. I remember that in my first Ironman in 2002, everybody starts together. There's a mass start.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you get
Yeah.
when you get to the first buoy, it was desperate. It was a war. As you said, there's people coming over you, under you, at side, and everybody's trying to make the same turn. It was a chaos. It's chaos. So,
It's
but
scary.
yeah,
It can be scary, mate. I get
yeah,
it. I get why Ironman are doing the staggered starts and all of that.
yeah,
You want to encourage people into the sport, and as much as it looks good for television, it's kind of scary when you're in the thick of it and
yeah,
you're trying to come up for a breath, and somebody else's arm comes on your head and you back under again. You're like, shit, I got to get a
yeah,
breath in here. I'm in trouble.
yeah. No,
We've all had it.
I got another message from you too, from another athlete from Brazil. Just send you a message again. So let me see if you can hear it.
Hey, what's up, Greg? Very nice to talk to you, even though it's virtually. Well, it's been a long time. I miss a lot those times when we raced together around the world. I remember you guys, Australian guys, very strong field, and it's very nice to remember everything. One of the things I can say about you, it's for me, you are one of the more consistent guys that I've raced with. Very nice to talk to you, mate. Have fun. Bye-bye.
This is Alexandre Manzan. He's another
Yeah,
legend
of
from
course.
Brazil.
Macedo and Manzan, they were the two guys together that really really together, they took Brazil to another level.
Yeah,
And for us Aussies that were tended to be a little bit bigger and came maybe more from the surf swim background and picked up the bike pretty well, they were always the guys that were chasing us. It was always the Brazilians are coming. It was like, he was one of them. It's so great to hear his voice. Oh my God. Thanks for doing that, buddy.
I saw him this weekend.
yeah.
You
this
did?
weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did a race in close by, and he was there. It was so nice to see him.
Are both those guys still involved in the triathlon community a little bit, coaching or commentary?
Yeah,
Or anything?
Macedo has a coaching business in Brasilia. Manzan
Okay.
is
I wish
Manzan.
they were
Yeah.
closer to the sport. You know?
Yeah.
Like, because they meant so much to us. They should be a figure like more involved to the sport.
Yeah, it'd be great for them. Like, do they come on your show a bit, those guys? Or
Yeah.
be
No,
nice
No,
to...
we haven't talked to him
We
yet.
haven't talked to them.
Oh.
I've talked to them in my old show and
Yeah.
not in this one.
But it'd be the
they're
kind of
soon-
thing
they
I'd
are soon
bring them in
here.
once a month to help
Yes.
even be hosts. You know,
Yeah.
let them be the hosts and ask the questions too. Be great to hear from them a little bit more. And I think it'd be great for your show to just have them come on and be
Yeah, of
hosts.
course.
Just
Yeah.
co-host with you every now and then. It'd be cool.
No,
Yeah,
they are
yeah.
great legends,
Top
yeah.
blokes,
Oh,
really.
so nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Well, Greg, moving to the Olympics. So we have the Olympics in the middle of the year in Paris 2024. Are you familiar with the race course? Have you ever raced in Paris?
Well, I did the World Cup in Paris in, when was that, 96, 97, when we swam
You
the
guys
river Seine.
Like,
Yeah.
you would ride under the Eiffel Tower, right?
The Eiffel Tower, the transition area was right on the Eiffel
remember that.
Tower, and it was meant to
Very
be a sprint distance triathlon, so 750, 20, and 5, which we'd never had in ITU at the time. It was always Olympic distance, and that was unusual. But the current of the River Seine was going so fast that they took us 2 kilometers upriver, and we just basically were going so fast. You're navigating between all the bridges, you know, and then trying to get out, you're almost getting swept past the ramp. It was crazy. I think, was it Olivier Marceau won that? I can't remember who won.
I think it was Olivier Marceau.
Yeah, it might have been Olivia. And then I know Macca and I did okay. I think we were maybe 8th and 9th or something like that. I only mentioned Macca because I think we were the two Aussie guys that went to go do it, and we were young. It must have been 96 because I think we were pretty young and fresh. So yeah, look, going forward to this year, I've looked at the course. I haven't studied it. So I think I have in the men's side, I have my kind of hope do well kind of guys, if you know what I mean. Like Hayden Wild from New Zealand is one of my just favorite people. His episode on my show I just thought was really beautiful. I remember asking him, you know, you've had a good 6-figure year this year, you know, what are you going to do with that money? He said, well, you know, I'm going to pay off my mum's mortgage. You know, she's 55 and she shouldn't have a mortgage. And he brought me to tears on that episode. He was just such a, you know, he'd lost his dad when he was 11 in a plane crash, and just a really good blue collar tough kid. I love Hayden Wild, so I'm quietly hoping. I love the way he races.
Yeah.
The guy is a triathlete. He can swim, bike.
He never sit back and
never
wait for the round. Yeah.
He's got that mongrel about him, doesn't he? And the other one I love, Matt Hauser, who I had on the show. I'd love to see the Aussies. Come on. It's like the Aussie men don't have a podium And I'm like, how is my 4th place in Sydney still the best result for an Australian man? So I'd love to see Maddie turn up. I think Christian Blumenfeld, I've had some really great conversations with Olive, his coach, and it'd be great to see the defending champion be able to, before he moves on to another sport or whatever he's going to do, which Olive told me on my show. I was like, what? Christian's going? But it sounds like at the end of this year, Christian might be moving on. So it'd be nice to see him round out the podium for the men. And then the women, I don't know about you guys, but it's almost hard to put your money past Taylor Knibb just for how dominant she is.
And now she's training with Dan Lorraine. So
is she really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
You know everything, Peter. You know everything, mate.
No, I heard it on Jack Kelly.
They said it in the Oceanside, right?
Yeah, I heard it at the. I don't remember if I heard from Jack Kelly at the Triathlon Hour or from the Pro Tri News. One of
those guys are more up to date than the rest. Wow, that's big for Dan. It's funny because I didn't know if Dan was going to start stepping away a little bit more now. Since Jan, because when I've spoken to Dan offline, not on the show, I know he's got some other things that he'd like to be involved in, but hey, he's got, now he's got Lucy Charles Barkley and Annie Hug and Taylor Knibb. That's not bad.
Yes,
not bad.
Not bad at all.
Gee whiz.
She was racing in Oceanside like 10 to 11 minutes. It
was insane, mate. It was insane. Look, I think, okay, let's talk about Oceanside for 1 second because, I watched the men's race. I watched the women's more from afar. I wasn't tuned in I was just getting the results and the updates. I think Taylor Knibb's performance was great, but I was a little disappointed, and I'm good friends with all the other women, so I'm not putting them down, but I feel like Taylor might have almost squashed their real zing to try and go for they all raced for second pretty early on. And, Taylor Knibb rode a 2:18. Lionel Sanders rode a 2:05. So 13 minutes at that distance is usually about right. Maybe a bit more sometimes, but not much. And then her run was also about the right amount behind the men, and she was beaten by 25 minutes from Lionel Sanders to Taylor Knibb. 25 minutes is the golden number at that 70.3 distance between men and women. It tends to be right around that. And it's a bit like you kind of say right around 10 minutes for the Olympic. It becomes 25 for the 70.3 and 50 minutes for the Ironman. It's kind of like you can see it. And so Taylor was actually right on point against Lionel. The other girls, 12 minutes behind, they're outstanding. Emma Plant Brown, I still believe there's so much more untapped potential in Emma that I think they're doing a really good job, but I believe in Emma even more than I think she knows that I think she could close that gap substantially.
Even took a wrong turn or something on the bike.
Even a what?
She took a wrong turn on the bike and got back into the other girl.
I guess Taylor also had a bathroom break on the run for anywhere from, they're saying 3 minutes, but even if we said 90 seconds, it's a long time.
Because at the Pro Tri News, they said that Taylor Knibb, the final time of Taylor Knibb at this year, she didn't won, and she wouldn't take the victory in the last year.
Right. Okay. Well, there you go. No, look, they might have different conditions, different courses. I don't know, but
of course.
But I just go off the men to the women. That's always the best for me. Both are on the same course at the same time. We can always go, well, what is the difference?
Was exciting.
Yeah, the men's race was exciting. Can you guys believe, though? I've got I had to look up the prize money. It was $7,500 for the win for Lionel, $5,000 for second. By the time it's $2,500 at least to get to these races, and now he's traveling with a wife and his kid, and so he's walking home. Okay, and he's got bonuses from sponsors and everything else. I get it. But seriously, what are we doing here?
They don't focus in the T100.
T100 is where the money is at. Well, I don't know. Lionel, he hasn't got a start in the T100, does he?
No.
He doesn't. He didn't get a start. Sam Long did. And it was a great race. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not meaning to talk about money one of those was like, I maybe I've been out of the sport too long. I thought it was going to be about $20,000 for the win. Something which is good, because you don't get to race that often. People think, he's going to get to race 6 to 8 times, and of those, 3 or 4 of
And
them are going to do
Lionel
it.
is not racing that much this year.
No,
Yeah.
no.
He's trying to focus Kona. And said the
Yeah.
Kona is his target for this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can win because there's a lot. I always say that my heart wants to say yes, but my brain is not ready to put Lionel at this
My
top
heart
ranking
will always go with the
Kona.
one that I think prepares the best and is the most intentional about everything they do.
Yes.
He
And
changes too much.
The thing I love about Lionel is he's an all-in, loves to peer over
Yeah.
the edge and brutal. Like I resonate with that. Like I look at Lionel and go, yeah, that was me. I love putting myself in the basement and loud music and just intense screaming at myself. That was me. I love that. But I also changed that when I wanted to really go to the next level and do everything with more intent. You know, whether that's sleep, nutrition, body work, biomechanics, mental strategies, all of it. You want to start doing better and better and better. And sometimes doing less is far more. And look, his race in Oceanside is great. And it's nice for him to have another 70.3 win. He's won a lot of 70.3 wins that aren't world titles.
Yeah.
And, you know, but this sport is made up of who wins the world titles, who holds the world number one. Or if you're not going to win a world title, better be a huge prize purse, you know, which is like a world title in itself. That was the way I approached it. Everything else were preparation for the main event. And there's no point winning all the preparation events if you can't win the big one.
Yeah, I heard once an interview with Sebastian Kinley and Lionel Sanders, and Kinley said to Sanders that he wants much more 70.2 races than him because he just wins the important ones.
Exactly.
And-
Yeah, well, Kinley, look at his resume, mate. It's
Yeah.
outstanding. I just had him on the show. It was really great to catch
Yeah.
up with him again after many years. And he's, you know, he's got the Kona wins, 270.3 wins, Frankfurts and Roths. They're all the ones that go tick, tick, tick. If you're a long course athlete, you better have a resume that ticks those boxes.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not going to the Olympics and you're not doing that stuff, you better be ticking, you know, those boxes. Like, and I'm a fan of Lionel, but I get frustrated. So I'm kind of like, until you get this right, and as soon as you get it right, I'm there for you, buddy. But I don't know, it frustrates me.
Yeah.
So, Greg, since you're a big lover of the sport, who do you think, like the top 3 males and females, like in your opinion, top 3 of all time?
I
That
was
was the hard one.
I was telling Beto, I had put a spreadsheet together on this many years ago. I'd have to go look it up, but I broke it down depending on what you want to call is the greatest of all time, right? Because there's
in your opinion, your type of
no. I have I'm a mathematical guy, mate. I like statistics and I like numbers. So what I did is I put a spreadsheet together where I really looked at the first 3 columns were swim, bike, run, and they each got 20% each, right? So really, how do you swim on your own, bike on your own, run on your own? Swim, bike, run. Then I had another section for titles. You know, if you've, you know, I think that was probably a good 15% or something for the amount of titles you have. Then I had another 5% or so for longevity, another 5% for the ability, like we talked about, being an all-rounder from going from very short to very long. And then, I don't know, maybe another 5% for something else. Can't even remember, but I broke it down. So, and then I started putting names in without any bias, of course, but there was bias. And this is many years ago, so things have changed, but not as much as I thought they would. And what I came up with was I'm going to put the top 5 men to start, and then we can talk about it. I think Mark Allen is in that top 5. I don't know if you're new to the sport, go look him up. Went on a winning streak like you wouldn't believe for the longest time. Plus he's 6 times winning in Kona Ironman and reducing the time down like we've never seen before to that 8:07 when he went head to head with Dave in 89. He's winning Avignon and all the other races in between, 10 times in Nice. Mark Allen, insane, absolutely insane.
But
and
even in the short course, he was
and
good.
changed the way we do the sport. Like, yeah, it's just changed. And I'm a huge fan. Fan of Mark, and it's now a real thrill to call him a friend because I'm such a groupie. Then I would add, it's hard not to add Jan Frodeno. I think what Jan's done in this past decade, 15 years, has been extraordinary. from Olympic gold, and 3-time Iron, and the way that he had the target on his back for such a long time, and he just kept showing up. There was something really great about Jan. Alistair Brownlee, the way he shaped and changed the course, the way that we all raced, the guy that, like you talked about, he's just an animal, and he's wanted it since the age of 7, and he created it. And to win 2 Olympic gold medals, 2, this is, to win 1 is insane. To win 2 is unbelievable. Javier Gomez is in the mix because of nobody has won more races than that guy. You could stack up the other Mark Allen, Alistair Brownlee, and Jan Frodeno, and you still don't have as many wins. I hope Javier comes back, but he went on for the 10 to 15 years from about 05 through to 2019 or whatever. The guy just kept winning. And in terms of the ability to swim, bike, and run, the guy can do all 3. His bike is probably his little weakness. His longevity and his ability to do all the distances is really phenomenal. And then the final one of my 5 for the men is Simon Lessing. And the reason I love Simon in that top 5 is he was unbeatable in the 90s. Like that late 90s, you talk about Manzan and Macedo, myself and Hamish Carter and Bevan and Brad Bevan, and there's a whole bunch. Greg Walsh. But when Simon Lessing hopped on that start line, the guy was very tough to beat, and I think he was
He could do all the 3 disciplines.
He had no weakness.
He could
swim, bike, and run. If this sport was a time trial event, the guy would have won everything because he could swim with Walton, bike as well as Walton, and then go and run a sub 30 10K. Like, the guy was unbelievable. He didn't quite nail the Ironman stuff down, but still, in terms of the ability, he was incredible. And I know I'm leaving out millions of names. People are screaming at me a million other names. They are in my 6 to 20 group. And there's a lot in there when you talk about Macca and Crowley and Simon Whitfield and Hamish Carter and boom, 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 boom. There's many, many more we can pack into there. And then obviously we got the new generation with Christian Blumenfeld and Gustav Eden. We could keep going and going. But I've given you my top 5 for the men. Now I'm going to give you my women. My women, because I didn't get to race them all and experience it, whereas the men I actually got to, is harder. It's hard not to go past McKeely Jones in my mind for somebody who could do all 3 disciplines really well. All 3 disciplines.
She was the Simon Lessing of the girls.
Yeah. She got robbed of her Olympic gold medal. We know the girl that beat her got done for drugs later on, but we also know that her performance in Sydney was. So McKeely really, in my mind, has the gold medal in 2000. And McKeely would never want me to say that, by the way. That's me just saying it. But she won the gold. She's gone and won Kona. She won, 10 Escape from Alcatrazes, which was the biggest race in the world for the longest time. And just in the ITU World Championships that she has.
No, she won Xterra too.
And Xterra. There you go. See, Beto, we got like an encyclopedia here with Beto. I love it. And then look, then you pick people like Karen Smyers and others there's so many wonderfuls. Emma Snowsill. What Taylor Nibb's starting to do is just like starting to blow my mind. And then I'm leaving out one of the biggest ones, Daniela. Thanks, mate. Daniela Riff. Seriously, 5-time Kona Ironman world champion. Was it 670.3 world titles? And people say, oh, yeah, she couldn't do short. If you go watch the Seoul race when she won the Seoul World Cup
in
the ITU.
She was under 23.
So, yeah, Daniela's right up there. Chrissy Wellington shaped, women's Ironman in a big way.
Paula Fraser.
And Paula, you got to give just kudos for that era of leading the women in the way that she did. And, Natasha Badman has 6 Ironman or 7 Ironman world titles. So the women for me, apart from probably putting McKeely just on the edge above Daniela, it's kind of hard for me to say because I wasn't in it and didn't get to feel their swim and bike and run power. But man, the women have been crushing it. I don't know.
Emma's still in that decade of 2006 to 2010.
That Olympic gold she had in 2008 was one of the most dominating Olympic golds you could ever see. Nicola Spirig, we didn't mention Nicola, but her longevity in that and getting a gold and silver in the Olympics, and all great people too. just, you know, I mentioned all these people's names, but they're just wonderful people.
Yeah.
You know,
No, this is a never-ending discussion, and there's no right or wrong answer.
no.
I always, when I try to say this, when I try to talk to somebody here in Brazil, and they ask me who I think is the best, I always said that I need to put Dave Scott, Mark Allen, and Paulo Nibir away from the discussion, because
they're
for
the
me,
godfathers. They're
yeah,
the godparents of the
yeah,
sport.
for
I
me,
agree with
they
you.
are the guys. They are the guys that create the competition in Ironman. Without them, there wasn't the sport. The sport wasn't be
Yes,
here today.
I love
So
it.
this is the guys that I put here. Though this is the guy that creates the sport. So
Yeah.
now we go for the other guy. So, and I
Yeah.
agree with you the most of the times, and most of the names you said, and we're totally fine with this.
I'm sure we're missing some. I'm sure I'm missing a whole bunch of
Yeah,
Europeans and other
there's a
people.
lot
People are
of
going
guys.
screaming at me, Greg, you didn't mention. I'm like, I know. My brain's not there right now. Just give me a break.
Yeah. Well, Greg, I think we're going to finish we're going to the finish and coming to the finish, and I like to ask you something about you're speaking a lot about practice of gratitude in the morning as you do, and tell us. I want you to tell us a little about it. And is it something that you have done when you're racing too, or there's a different practice over there in that time?
No, I wasn't doing it when I was racing. When I was racing, I was very purposeful. I knew what I was about. I was very intentional, and life sort of came to me a little bit more. And then it was more I started practicing the gratitude, and I'll break out down kind of what I do. Actually, once I retired and was trying to find my way again, and often you can, when you're trying to find your way again, you can often fall in the trap of blaming and complaining others, and why isn't the world working out how I want it? And not that I was ever that far gone with that, but it's easy to become that person. So I've got to the point with what I do now is every single morning, wake up, and the first thing I do is walk straight outside barefoot on the grass, and really just be grateful for the obvious things first, like fresh air, running water. Start very simple, big things that we take for granted all the time that a lot of the world don't have. And then I start breaking it down. I'm grateful for my health and my strength and my fitness and, you know, other bits about me. So it's almost like a self-empowerment, you know, and I could give you the whole ring, but I'd embarrass myself. But I have my kind of way of doing it.
Okay.
And then I you know, and then I'll celebrate Laura and the kids, the in-laws, my family. I celebrate all the guests on the podcast and having the podcast, my network of friends and people, and boom, boom, boom. And it just it takes no more than 3 to 5 minutes. I'm often doing a little bit of exercise or whatever, and, you know, and I'm doing it out loud, by the way. So, you know, it feels more impactful to me to do it out loud. If I do it quiet, it doesn't quite feel as strong. And then as I walk inside, I just say, hey, you know, today could be your last. How do you want to live it? And it's a real reminder that our time here is going to end. And how do you want to make the most of the time that you have left? You know, and I'm reminded by that every single morning I start the day, and I go, okay. And it reminds me of my calendar and the conversations I'm going to have, and to be present with my kids and be present in these, you know, if I'm doing a podcast, to be present. And then I often do it again at night. If I, you know, need to go to sleep, I practice my gratitude. And there's a little manifestation in there as well, you know, about, you know, things that I may be aspiring to want to have in my life that, you know, maybe aren't there. So that's about it, mate. I'd encourage everybody to do it. I've been doing it for about 7 years. Every single day, get up, do the same thing. And it's opened my eyes big time. It's like you get rid of that whole blaming, complaining, remove all of it. And when you're grateful and you actually feel it in your core, I'm telling you, you don't take anything for granted. It's a massive slap of perspective that I think sometimes we just need a little reminder of how amazing we got it. You know?
And it's still earlier waker.
Yeah, I still like this morning was about 4:15, but I go to bed when the kids go to bed. So, you know, the kids are asleep by 7:30. Last night I was asleep by 8. So yeah, it's just my clock is that way. I don't tell anybody has to get up early. I just like those morning hours. Yeah, it's quiet.
Okay. Greg, just to finish up with some very quick questions.
All right, rapid fire. Here we go.
Rapid fire, yes. Your preferred workout?
Preferred workout, game of tennis with Laura.
Worst workout.
Probably a swimming set like 10 400s in the pool.
The best race venue.
Best race venue. For me, it would have to have a surf swim, decent hills on the bike, and a beautiful run. So probably Mooloolaba World Cup I always loved. Alcatraz is something a race that everybody should do at least once, just because it's tough. Monte Carlo, when we had the World Cup in Monaco, that was really cool on the Formula One course, but it was still in the choppy ocean swim. God, there's so many, mate. I don't.
Yeah, best training partner.
Laura. Yeah, probably Laura. I've had a lot of great ones. I think Crowe is one of my favorites. Simon Whitfield, Hamish Carter, Macca, if you just want somebody to tell you really great stories the whole time. But yeah, I'll stick with Laura.
Your ideal post-race indulgence.
A beer and a burger.
And some tech that triathletes have nowadays that you wish you had back in the day.
Some what?
Some tech, some gadget.
Some gadget. Yeah. I wish we had the super shoes that they're all running in. If I could pick one, if I could have one thing to go back in time and race in 2007, 8 or whatever, and I'd just take a pair of those, whatever the running shoes that they're wearing now, I'd take those over everything else.
Okay. Well, that's it. Fabio, I don't know if you have something else to say.
No, Greg, thanks for letting us talk to, so nice to
anytime,
hear
guys.
from you.
Yeah, anytime. Thoroughly enjoyed it. You can tell I get excited about talking about this stuff as you guys do. And so I feel like, man, we should do this quarterly just to catch up. We'll have a quarterly recap and we'll discuss where we'll take a temperature of the room of where the world of triathlon is at, state of the union. I think we should do this more often. It's really great to see you guys too.
Yeah, definitely.
You should come to Brazil one time.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Hey, let's put it on the map and let's figure out. We can do these in person. Then we can do these in person. I'll have Macedo and Manzan on the show together on my show. We can do something. Let's do it. Anybody really wealthy that wants to just fly me down and put me up and let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thanks, Greg.
Very nice to talk to you. I always say that you said in your show that anytime you feel like it, send you a message, you talk to your wife. Oh, feel like it, send me a message. I always say this to my wife. Well, Greg sent me a message. I was talking to Greg, so Greg is my friend now, and
we are, mate. We are. I would hate to think of us as anything else, mate. We are friends, and Fabio, you and I go way back as well, mate.
Yeah.
So it's really just. This triathlon community is just full of really wonderful people. I can tell you, like Beto, you came on one of my Fireside Fridays, which you didn't have to book in for that because we do know each other well enough. But, I did a couple of more of those today. And I'm telling you, there's amazing people all around the world that just have unbelievable stories. And just having these Fireside Friday chats with my listeners and the audience and the triathlon community is so cool. You guys should do that, by the way. Everybody should just start doing this. Just open it up to anybody to talk to you on a Friday for an hour. It's really cool.
Well, thank you so much, Greg.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Stay on the line. We'll just finish it up.
No problem.
With some Portuguese finish. Bom, pessoal, foi isso aí. Acho que eu e o Fabinho aqui tivemos uma oportunidade enorme de a gente poder falar com o ícone aí do nosso esporte. É uma honra, né, Fabinho? E, bom, aquelas recomendações de sempre, né? Sigam a gente lá no canal no YouTube, no nosso Instagram, no @trilados, sempre tem coisa boa por lá e compartilha, manda mensagem, o que vocês quiserem ouvir aqui, que esse conteúdo é feito para vocês, tá bom? Valeu, pessoal, obrigado, até a próxima.